Hi, my name is Sky, and I have a message for Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson. So, listening to some of your recent talks and older talks, and uh, your takedowns and analysis of science fiction, especially the movies, and different stories, I really enjoy. And with that in mind, I kept coming back to an idea of how could I create and write a space battle? Like, what would it happen? How would it turn out? How will the people fight? What sort of mechanisms and methodologies could be used? So, uh, kept thinking about it and finally wrote out a space battle. So, you can read it. I would like to verbally present some of the ideas to get your take on it. Because originally, when I was thinking of, so how do you live and get around in space, I realized that, okay, so there's two science fiction things which would need to happen, be created. Um, so, how to protect yourself from all the cosmic, just stuff that can kill you. X-rays, micro meteorites, um, and then the other aspect is travel. How do you get from uh, one star system to another? And so there's different ideas of, like, all right, well, it's propulsion, and propulsion only gets you so far so fast. You are going to need other things to help you get around, because conceivably, feasibly, uh, yeah, if you wanted to get like really just hardcore into space travel, you need to get from uh, multiple astronomical units away to to travel to do things of importance or significance. So the second science fiction thing is the method of travel. Um, so, boy, how do I break down this video? I took some. I realized, okay, I got to write this down in notes. Um, so what I'll do is, I guess I'll go step by step, and then I'll timestamp of where I discuss the science fiction idea I come up with, and also the way, like, how they get to a space war. Um, so so this way, let's make a bigger, better video and more interesting, entertaining for anybody watching. Okay, so the timeline I wrote out is 2180, CE, Common Era. United Nations declared the ultimate authority of Earth, and 2101, a sort of council special mission is voted on in terms of called Project Seedling. Um, with that, Earth starts getting majorly focused on travel to space, and so they develop a space elevator and a space force. The space force to clean up the floating debris around Earth, as well as act as a rescue force for all the space travel that's about to occur. The elevator, space elevator, is because of the amount of energy required to get up and down, and it's uh, technologically sound, I guess, or it's technologically feasible that you can create a building that goes up into an orbit, or something into over the Earth. So yeah, it's interesting, and like, why not? But that also makes it easier just to get material up and down. Why material up and down? Because mining of the asteroid belt would become a high priority. That's where all the resources are at. That's where you can get the material to build spacecraft. So, it's like early on, just they realized, okay, we have to start mining stuff from space. Uh, you know, get to the point of automation for a lot of materials. Send one of those devices, harvesting devices, mining equipment to the asteroid belt. Start getting material, and then use that raw material to start, doing what you can. And I think the technology would get to the point of having a macro and a micro production facility or production system aboard major spacecraft. So macro, micro, because the macro production system is able to produce the hull of the ship, the housing of, ducts and tubing and just, the big, just simple metal, slap this together, weld it, all right, now it's in place. And then the micro produces the electronics, or as best it can. So to some degree, it produces the wiring, some of the synthetics, like in terms of insulation, and if to a point circuitry, like because it's just so like there would be some circuitry required, some simple devices. So this machine could theoretically create that. And so with that in mind, these these two devices or two production systems, along with droids, robots, little assistants, I think similar to like astromechs from Star Wars, like just kind of going around and collecting items, able to put them together with whatever manipulating arms. They're able to go inside and outside of the ship. They would be small, so they can get around to nooks and crannies of the ship for repairs and what have you. And if something bigger needs to be done, it could sort of have a gadget that can connect to whatever device and now it has extra abilities and arms, power, what have you, to manipulate and do something more. So the focus after that then is go to Mars and create a space station floating around there. Yay, we got that. Harvesting the moons of Mars. Yay, we got that. So now what? Well, you need a terraform because Mars is small, so it doesn't have enough gravity to hold atmosphere. Part of the idea of Project Seedling is that man needs to leave Earth because eventually the sun will expand and kill the Earth. And okay, so we're just thinking long term, millions of years. All right. So get terraform Mars, and part of the way you do that is over the harvesting of the asteroid belt. You get whatever extra material and just send that to Mars. Let it sort of start raining, sprinkling in matter and material on Mars, adding to its mass. And after so many years, hey, you have a planet, possibly a little bit bigger than Earth, or like a little bit larger in terms of solid mass. And then, now you seed it with ice, oxygen, and start, figuring out okay, how much hydrogen? Now we have water. So what else? It take however many years, plate tectonics would develop on Mars, or who knows what have you. And in the course of that, you realize, okay, so Mars is going to take some time to become a planet, to become a viable ecological planet with its own atmospheres and biomes. The space station orbiting around Mars, you can say, okay, let's develop a space city. So how would you do that? Take a bunch of iron and just put it into a ball and make that ball huge, gigantic, to the point where the center of that iron ball becomes molten. And that ball of molten iron is big enough that if you spin this giant ball of iron, you're able to create a dynamo effect with the iron ball on the inside. And that dynamo effect, which is what happens for Earth, you're able to create a sort of shield, I guess you could say, of electromagnetic, an electromagnetic shield around this ball of iron, spinning iron. So collect all that iron, put it into the ball as big as you can, make the molten core big enough. So you got that point. You can measure that. You can understand that, all right, we have that point. Now slap on top of that a metal skin. Maybe an inch or however off the top of this metal ball. And on top of that metal skin, install magnetic machinery. Build the housing and all the stuff needed for that. Slap a layer of skin on that. That becomes your base layer. So from there, you start building out support layer, what have you. A couple of layers up. Now you can say, okay, we have this giant thing, Space City. So it's going to be there for years. And the idea is that you're going to use this to support terraforming a planet. Part of how you do that is, I want to say 2 sections. One section is water, and the other section is dry land that align themselves according to the axis, the spinning axis of this sphere. And you ideally are trying to recreate all the biomes of Earth on what would essentially be like, if it's like even 1 mile wide of water, 1 mile wide of soil, and you're able to, it's inside of the space station. So it's an enclosed environment. You're able to have wind and what have you, and you can make one wall rock, the other wall look like whatever. The animals aren't going to know inside. You put as many different kinds of animals in the different biospheres, and you have basically a whole another mile section or half-mile section that is support. That is basically zookeepers who are monitoring everything going on. They're monitoring the genetic diversity of all the wildlife that's there. And because when you get to this new planet and like, hey, so now we have, this looks like an estuary situation. Okay, we can create a swamp. All right, cool. From there, we can put in these kind of animals, these kinds of plants. This is, what looks like it'd be good for, forests. Okay, a bunch of, grass. Now we grow seedlings for trees. Bam, there we go. And just slowly create an ecosystem on this new planet. So on top of that would be a couple different layers of, like the top layer would be, because this thing would be spinning, it'd be orbiting this planet that's being constructed. So it's a moon, a satellite of the planet being terraformed. It would get solar radiation. So that's solar panels, as well as the different cosmic rays. And you would have a couple different pocket layers on the surface of this space city. Solar panels which can come and go, or they're fixed, whatever. Clear transparent panels that can be shielded over with metal, but the clear transparent panels allow in the sunlight, and that would go into a top layer of water. Not completely filled full of water, because that's going to be full of photoplankton. So all the solar radiation coming in, it's just feeding these oxygen producing little microorganisms. So, and underneath there, that top layer, you would have another 2 layers of water. Those could be completely full, and that's full of marine wildlife. So you would have a ecosystem going on that's 3 layers of water, however many feet thick, meters thick, and that's providing shield and protection from the cosmic rays coming from space. And the fish and what have you, wildlife would feed the crew. So on top of that, So that's a sort of the outer hall of the space city, and as a result, you don't need that many people to sort of live and work there, because you'd have whatever mining crews going around the space, the solar system, to collect resources for the space city, for the terraforming, um, and then you would have the scientists who are monitoring the terraforming uh, once it's underway, and then once that's complete, uh, decades could have gone by, generations could have gone by. So now you have all the material you need to begin settling this new planet. Um, anyways, let me get back to. But that's what's going on with Mars. Um, is this, the traditional take 6 months.